Hollywood wants you to remember its blockbusters, but let's be honest, what's more fun than watching a studio trip over its own ego? The 1990s were a goldmine for disasters so jaw-dropping, you'd swear the scripts were written on a dare. Who thought these were good ideas? Ever wonder what happens when you mix blind confidence, bloated budgets, and a complete lack of self-awareness? Grab your popcorn, because these aren't just flops. They're Hollywood's dirty little secrets, buried deep, but not deep enough. Cool as Ice 1991. Here's the recipe. Take the hottest one-hit wonder of the moment, slap him on a motorcycle, and pray lightning strikes twice. The result? Vanilla Ice starring in Cool as Ice, a movie so aggressively clueless it became instant comedy gold. Studios figured Ice's chart-topping single was enough to carry a film, so they didn't bother with a script that made sense, or acting lessons, or even a plot that wasn't stitched together from 80s music videos. Ice plays a bad boy who drifts into a small town, speaks almost exclusively in cringe-worthy rhymes, and tries to win over a local girl by being, well, Vanilla Ice. The dialogue is painful. The fashion is a time capsule of everything neon and wrong, and every dramatic moment is undercut by accidental comedy. Universal banked $6 million on this frozen turkey, but audiences weren't buying. The film barely scraped past $1 million before vanishing. Even Ice himself later joked about how bad it was. The only thing cool about this film is how quickly it was forgotten. But admit it, you're a little curious to see just how low a studio can go. Sometimes a car crash is so spectacular you can't look away. Hudson Hawk 1991. Bruce Willis was untouchable in the early 90s, and somewhere along the way, someone decided that meant he could do anything, including singing, wisecracking, and pulling off a jewel heist in Hudson Hawk. The pitch must have sounded wild: action, comedy, musical numbers, all mashed together like a fever dream. Only nobody asked if any of it would actually work. Willis, riding high from Die Hard, even helped dream up the story, convinced he could redefine what an action hero could be. Instead, Hudson Hawk became the gold standard for Hollywood hubris. The plot is so convoluted, you'll need a flowchart just to follow who's double-crossing who. Tone whiplashes from slapstick to violence, and somewhere in there, Bruce tries to sing old standards while robbing the Vatican. Critics roasted it, audiences ran for the exits, and the film lost an estimated $50 million. Careers took a hit. Hudson Hawk quickly became shorthand for overindulgent vanity projects, where nobody says no to the star and everyone pays the price. It's not just a flop, it's a lesson Hollywood keeps forgetting. North 1994. If you ever wanted proof that a movie with a dream cast can still implode spectacularly, look no further than North. Directed by Rob Reiner, fresh off A Few Good Men, and starring Elijah Wood, Bruce Willis, and a parade of A-listers, North was supposed to be clever family fare. Instead, it's a cringe parade that left critics in disbelief. The story? A boy decides to divorce his parents and travels the world auditioning new ones. It's supposed to be heartwarming, but comes off as bizarre and smug. Each vignette gets weirder, and the comedy falls flat over and over. The cast tries hard, but there's nothing to save. Roger Ebert called it one of the most hated films he'd ever reviewed, writing, "I hated this movie." That review became legend, outshining the film itself. North cost $40 million. But made just $7 million, vanishing faster than you can say studio embarrassment. It's the kind of film that makes you wonder if anyone ever said the script out loud before greenlighting it. Even with big names and bigger money, sometimes the whole machine drives straight off a cliff. The Shadow 1994. Universal was desperate to cash in on the superhero craze. Enter The Shadow, a moody pulp adventure meant to launch Alec Baldwin as Hollywood's next masked icon. The hype was real. Lavish sets, snazzy special effects, and a marketing campaign that screamed blockbuster. There was just one problem: nobody actually cared. The character was a relic from radio and pulp comics, and the movie struggled to update him for the 90s. Baldwin sulked through clouds of dry ice, spouting catchphrases and vanishing in swirls of awkward CGI. The story zigzags between supernatural mumbo-jumbo and action sequences that feel like reheated leftovers from better films. Despite all the flash, the heart was missing. Universal pumped out toys, posters, and even video games, only to watch the film bomb on release. The planned sequels and merchandise empire evaporated. In the end, The Shadow proved that cool effects and a moody hero can't cover for a film nobody asked for. The Shadow knows how to vanish without a trace. Super Mario Bros. 1993. Here's an idea so bad you'd think it started as a bar bet. Turn the world's most beloved video game into a live-action dystopian sci-fi movie. Super Mario Bros. Is what happens when a studio grabs an IP, ignores everything fans love, and decides Dennis Hopper should play a dinosaur. Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo star as Mario and Luigi, but even they seemed confused about what was happening. The set looks like a post-apocalyptic nightmare, the script makes zero sense, and the villain is named King Koopa, a human in a lizard suit who seems as baffled as the audience. Stories from the set sound like horror tales. Directors feuding, actors drinking to cope, and the script being rewritten daily. The budget ballooned to $48 million, and it barely clawed back $20 million. Nintendo wouldn't let Hollywood touch their games for decades after. Fans were heartbroken, critics were merciless, and Super Mario Bros. Remains the answer to the question, how badly can you mess up a sure thing? Sometimes the only power-up you get is a lesson in what not to do. The Phantom 1996. Picture this: purple tights, a domino mask, and Billy Zane running through the jungle like he just missed his morning protein shake. The Phantom was supposed to kick off a new superhero franchise, but instead, it kicked itself straight into bargain bin obscurity. Studios saw the bat signal and figured any masked hero would do, so they dusted off a comic strip from the 1930s and hoped nostalgia would work magic. But audiences weren't buying. The plot revolves around 3 magic skulls that can destroy the world, but the real threat was how fast you'd want to escape the theater. Zane gives it his all, mugging and flexing his way through a script so goofy it might as well be a cartoon. The villain chews scenery, the action is laughable, and not even the jungle can hide how lost this film is. Despite big studio backing and endless marketing, The Phantom flopped hard, barely earning back its budget. Sequels? Merchandising? Forget it. The only thing The Phantom conquered was the list of movies you can't believe actually got made. If you blinked in '96, you missed it, and Hollywood prefers it that way. Double Dragon 1994. Take a classic arcade game about street fighting brothers, throw in a couple of sitcom actors, and what do you get? An unintentional comedy masterpiece, if by masterpiece you mean a movie so awkward it feels like a prank. Double Dragon is pure 90s chaos. Mark Dacascos and Scott Wolf play brothers with zero chemistry, tasked with saving their city from a bleach-blonde villain who looks like he lost a bet. The effects are cheap, the fight scenes look like rehearsal footage, and the plot is straight from a fever dream. Instead of badass action, we get jokes about hair gel and a magical medallion with powers nobody bothers to explain. Robert Patrick hams it up as the evil Koga Shuko, looking more lost than threatening. With a budget that disappeared faster than a quarter in an arcade, Double Dragon limped to a box office KO, earning just a fraction of what even the most forgettable action flicks pulled in. No one was clamoring for a video game adaptation like this, and after Double Dragon, they sure weren't asking for more. The only real victory? It's still hilarious, just not for the reasons anyone intended. Kazam 1996. Sometimes, Hollywood makes movies that are so baffling, you wonder if anyone ever said the idea out loud. Case in point, Kazam. The pitch? Shaquille O'Neal as a rapping genie who lives in a boombox and grants wishes to a troubled kid. It sounds like a joke, but it's real. $20 million real. Shaq tries his best, towering over the cast and spitting out rhymes that sound like lost cassette tapes from a middle school talent show. The special effects are clunky, the plot is paper-thin, and the comedy lands with a thud. The movie tries to ride the wave of genie popularity after Aladdin, but it's got none of the charm, wit, or magic, just a lot of Shaq and a genie outfit no one could look cool in. Audiences and critics dunked on it from the jump. Kazam barely made back its budget, and it quickly became the go-to punchline for athletes who can't act. Shaq eventually laughed it off, but the film's legacy is cemented. Proof that you can't just wish for a hit, you actually need a good movie. The Island of Dr. Maro, 1996. If you ever want a crash course in movie making gone off the rails, look no further than The Island of Dr. Maro. What started as a simple H.G. Wells adaptation spiraled into legendary chaos. Marlon Brando showed up in white pancake makeup, Val Kilmer lost the plot, and the original director was literally fired, only to sneak back onto set in disguise. The production was a horror show. Script rewrites, actor meltdowns, and a cast of mutant animals who looked more confused than menacing. Brando, wearing an ice bucket hat, barely knew his lines. Kilmer refused to cooperate. The behind-the-scenes drama was so wild, it inspired a whole documentary. When the film finally hit theaters, it was a fever dream of weirdness, with plot holes you could drive a truck through and performances that felt like performance art. Critics eviscerated it. Audiences noped out. The studio hemorrhaged money, and any hope of a franchise died on that island. In the end, The Island of Dr. Maro is a warning. Never underestimate Hollywood's power to turn a classic into a punchline. Ed 1996. The formula was simple. Take America's favorite sitcom star, add a baseball-playing chimp, and wait for the magic. What Universal got was Ed, a movie that proves sometimes you really can have too much monkey business. Matt LeBlanc, hot off Friends, is cast as a struggling minor league pitcher who gets help from Ed, a chimpanzee who can field grounders and steal bases. It sounds wacky, but in reality, it's a train wreck. The jokes are stale, the baseball scenes are somehow boring, and LeBlanc looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. The real star, Ed, is a man in a sweaty costume, and even kids could tell. The movie was relentlessly promoted, but audiences didn't buy it for a second. Critics rolled their eyes, parents begged for a refund, and the only thing lower than the box office was LeBlanc's enthusiasm. Ed was so bad it basically ended Hollywood's fascination with animal sidekicks for a decade. Want proof? Go ahead. Try to find anyone who admits they saw it in theaters. That's 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, you're out. Steel 1997. What could possibly go wrong when you take a little-known comic book character and put Shaquille O'Neal in a suit of armor that looks like it was built from scrap metal and optimism? Everything. Steel was Warner Brothers' big gamble on superhero fever, but the only thing it proved was that not every athlete is a movie star, especially when the script sounds like it was scribbled during halftime. Shaq, as a weapon-making genius turned vigilante, means well, but acting isn't his superpower. The film is loaded with cheesy one-liners, budget effects, and a villain who couldn't scare a parking meter. The suit squeaks, the action limps, and even the crowd scenes look embarrassed to be there. Shaq tried to bring heart, but the only thing pumping was the audience's urge to leave. With a $16 million budget and less than $2 million in box office returns, Steel was so disastrous, it put the brakes on DC movies for years. These days, it's mostly remembered as a warning. Just because you can cast a legend doesn't mean you should. If you missed Steel, count yourself lucky. Some heroes are better left on the page. Baby Geniuses 1999. Sometimes a movie's entire existence feels like a dare, like Hollywood wanted to see how much nonsense audiences could stomach. Baby Geniuses is the result. The plot. A secret cabal of talking babies with adult-level IQs battles a mad scientist in a world where grown-ups are clueless. If that sounds absurd, wait until you see the execution. Digital effects try to make toddlers look like they're plotting world domination, but the only thing they dominate is the uncanny valley. Dialogue is dubbed over wide-eyed infants, turning every scene into a surreal nightmare. Kathleen Turner and Christopher Lloyd do their best, but you can practically see the resignation in their eyes. Critics didn't just dislike it, they begged people to avoid it. The movie scraped a 2% on Rotten Tomatoes, and even kids weren't fooled. Despite all odds, it made enough at the box office to spawn an even worse sequel, ensuring Baby Geniuses a permanent spot in the Hall of Shame. Proof positive. Just because you can make a movie about genius babies doesn't mean you should. Town & Country 1999. If you want a masterclass in Hollywood waste, look no further than Town & Country. On paper, it was golden. Warren Beatty, Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn, and Gary Shandling. Off paper, it was a tire fire of rewrites, reshoots, and ballooning costs. Production dragged on for years, with scripts rewritten so often that actors forgot which version they were filming. The supposed romantic comedy feels like a hangover, scenes wander, jokes fall flat, and you get the sense nobody wants to be there. Studios spent a staggering $90 million, and after all that, the movie barely limped past $10 million at the box office. The delays became legendary, with Hollywood insiders whispering that every day on set cost more than some indie films' entire budgets. In the end, Town & Country became Hollywood shorthand for catastrophic excess, a film so lost it couldn't even buy its way out of the flop pile. The only thing romantic here is the idea that anyone could have saved it. Holy Matrimony 1994. How weird can a Hollywood misfire get? Try Holy Matrimony, a so-called comedy that starts with Patricia Arquette's character robbing a carnival and hiding out in a reclusive community only to wind up married to a 12-year-old. The premise is as uncomfortable as it sounds, and the execution only makes it worse. Disney thought they were greenlighting quirky counter-programming, but what they got was a film that made audiences squirm. Arquette does her best to find the heart in the story, but the whole thing is so misguided it's hard to know whether to laugh or cringe. Critics didn't buy it, audiences ignored it, and even the marketing team seemed embarrassed to promote it. The box office barely budged. Holy Matrimony vanished almost instantly, joining the ranks of movies Hollywood praise you'll never dig up. If you're looking for a textbook case of what were they thinking, this is it. Sometimes a film isn't just forgotten, it's actively erased. The Adventures of Pluto Nash, 1999. Take one of comedy's biggest stars, add a $100 million budget, and set it on the moon. What could go wrong? Absolutely everything. The Adventures of Pluto Nash is the kind of disaster that studios whisper about in meetings as a cautionary tale. Eddie Murphy tries his best as a nightclub owner on a futuristic lunar colony, but not even his charisma can outshine the script's confusion. Production problems, endless rewrites, and special effects that aged before the movie even hit screens turned this potential sci-fi romp into a black hole for talent and money. The jokes are stale, the action is flat, and the world-building is a mess. When it finally limped into theaters after years on the shelf, it was instantly rejected, $100 million spent, less than $7 million made back. Pluto Nash became the go-to punchline for big-budget failures and left Murphy scrambling for a comeback. If you need proof that Hollywood can lose touch, look no further. This isn't just a flop, it's a lunar disaster. Grey Owl 1999. If you ever wondered what happens when Oscar-winning legends make truly baffling career moves, look no further than Grey Owl. This was a passion project for director Richard Attenborough, yes, the guy behind Gandhi, who poured his heart into the story of a British man passing himself off as a Native American environmentalist. Suddenly, Pierce Brosnan signed on just as he became James Bond, so expectations skyrocketed. But the world didn't exactly need a movie about a British guy faking his identity and delivering lectures to moose. The production felt earnest, but audiences found it tone-deaf and unintentionally hilarious. Even Brosnan's star power couldn't lure crowds, and in the end, Grey Owl opened in just 70 theaters in Canada before being shipped straight to video in the United States. Attenborough was so devastated by the failure, he almost stopped directing altogether. The lesson? Even the greatest can trip over their own ambition, and sometimes a forgotten oddball flop stings more than a blockbuster bomb. For everyone involved, Grey Owl is one movie better left to the beavers. Quest for Camelot 1998. Warner Brothers decided the only thing standing between them and Disney-style animation glory was everything. Quest for Camelot was meant to be their answer to The Lion King. Instead, it was the kind of mess you can only get when a studio ignores every warning sign and barrels ahead anyway. The script was shaky from day one, but instead of fixing anything, WB yanked most of the animators off to work on Space Jam. Production stopped, started, scripts were thrown out, and directors were fired. The end result? Awkward animation, forgettable songs, and a story so bland it felt like medieval leftovers. Warner Brothers poured millions into marketing, but it was no use. The film was delayed a year, reviews were savage, and it flopped hard at the box office, losing an estimated $40 million. Quest for Camelot didn't just bomb, it helped kill WB's animation division for years. The only bright side? The studio learned to step back and let creators do their thing, leading eventually to cult favorites like The Iron Giant. Sometimes you have to faceplant before you can fly. So, what's the lesson here? Even the world's biggest studios can turn confidence into comedy, pouring millions into movies that nobody wanted and everyone wants to forget. But let's be honest, these disasters are half the fun of loving movies. Which flop made you laugh hardest, or did we miss one you suffered through in the theater? Drop your thoughts below, hit subscribe for more epic Hollywood faceplants, and remember, in showbiz, there's always another disaster waiting to be discovered. Stay curious. Sometimes the punchline is just getting started.